I'm Norm Poltenson, the publisher of the Business Journal. I want to talk to you about jobs. Seems to be on everybody's mind, largely because the unemployment rate is so high. And when we look behind the official unemployment rate of 6.7%, we see some pretty scary numbers in terms of those who are long-term unemployed, those who have left the job market, and those who are only marginally attached. They have part-time jobs and they really want full-time jobs. But when I talk about jobs, my concern is that we've been doing the same thing for at least 50 years. Ever since Lyndon Johnson created the Great Society and the Poverty Program, he wanted to move people into jobs. The whole purpose of the program was not to continue to support people where they are, but to get them so that they were gainfully employed. The problem as we look at it is we've been doing the same old thing for 50 years. I've seen estimates on expenditures for poverty programs on the low side of $16 to $17 trillion. And on the high side, we spent $20 trillion. And have we moved the needle? That's the real question. Well, it seems when the program started in 1964, we were at 17.2%. That was the poverty rate. It's now down to 15%. I guess you say that's some progress in the last 50 years. But I think we need some fresh thinking, especially as it relates to jobs. When I talk about that, what we've suddenly discovered after 50 years is maybe we've got it all wrong. There's a question of mobility. And researchers have finally looked at it and said, wait a minute, 40 or 50 years ago, 3% of the population changed their location every single year. They moved, largely because they went to where the jobs were. Today it's 1.5%. That's a lot of people. The question is why? What's the impact of people not moving? The bottom line seems to be that people don't move largely because of public policy. And what I mean by that is the way we've structured our programs, particularly the poverty program, is if you look at the big drivers like housing, people sign up for housing in their neighborhood, in their location. There happens to be a long waiting list. If you look at the question of health care with Medicaid, yes, it's a universal program across the country, but you have to sign up in each state and there are different requirements, and states offer different Medicaid packages. If you look at the food program, you have to register in every single state, and they're different as far as to how the food program goes. These are all disincentives for people to get up and go where the jobs are. Now, there are other things that are truly complicated, like the fact that we have 80 different federal welfare programs and 15 different nutritional programs and different housing programs, and it goes on and on as to how this works. We certainly could simplify that, but I think the main point is, how about sitting back and looking back at what worked 50 years ago, which was to encourage people to go where their jobs are. Even in a sluggish economy, as we've had since 2008, there are still pockets of explosive growth. All you have to do is look at North Dakota. Don't tell me the weather's bad in North Dakota. People are moving there. In fact, the unemployment rate is so low, they're begging to have people come in. They can't find enough people to fill the jobs that they've got. So we have this mismatch all over the country. I even hear it from employers here in our region that they have the job openings, but they can't find the people who will take them. So let's suggest a change. Let's suggest something that will encourage mobility. And by that, I've heard two suggestions that I think make a good deal of sense. Instead of paying people to stay where they are and not find jobs for 99 weeks, what if we just give them a grant? Let's call it a mobility grant. Give them the money up front to help them pick up and go where the jobs are. Doesn't sound like rocket science to me. But number two is the idea of creating migration zones. We create enterprise zones all over the place. We've been doing that since Jack Kemp prompted the idea back in the first Bush administration. And if you look at the plethora of enterprise zones, why is it that we couldn't have migration zones? Which simply says, let's look at those places like North Dakota that desperately need workers and set up a methodology to help people actually move. Because it's not just the money to get them there. What seems to be most successful is they need a network. Whether it's friends or family or a community that's embracing them, they need a variety of social welcoming mats, if you will, or welcome wagons. So with just these two ideas and streamlining all the programs that we have, making sure that we have affordable housing, we have this silly system now where all we do is encourage the purchase of homes, which discourages renting. It's not just apartment, but renting homes. There's no tax advantage to doing that. We could easily change that and encourage people to make them move and to encourage their renting. We could certainly beef up the Earned Income Tax Credit, which is the only program I know of that's really designed and focused just on working people to help them make it, to encourage them to work. So let's sit back. Let's say, look, after 50 years and $17 or $20 trillion, keeping in mind that the federal and the state government continue to spend almost $1 trillion a year on poverty programs, let's rethink this thing and try some ideas that might actually get people to move from where they are to where the work is. Let them be long-term gainfully employed, not long-term unemployed, and let them become tax contributors. That's a thought for what I would call a real jobs program and a role that the government could play. I'm Norm Poltenson. Thanks for listening.